Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
And the aliens with mind meld and give them the technology. They're bad aliens.
So
are you surprised that Nazis were influenced by demons?
No, if demons are real, I would definitely think they'd be on the side of the Nazis.
Yeah.
McDonald's is connected to the Clintons. They chop up the bodies and put them into the sausage and hamburgers. People are being cannibalized. Look it up.
And I'm watching CNN talk about this as violent white nationalist protests. We have done everything in our power to keep this peaceful, you know?
It's Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
Welcome to Yeah Nah Pasaran, a show about fascism and its gravediggers. I'm Cam Smith.
I'm Andy Fleming.
And we're joined this week by Dr Cristina Moreno-Almeida, who is a postdoctoral fellow researching digital cultures in Morocco at King's College London. Thanks for joining us, Cristina.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
I guess just to begin with, could you tell us a little bit about why you started researching digital cultures in Morocco?
Well, in fact, I've been researching popular culture in Morocco in general for nearly 10 years now. I started looking at rap music and hip-hop culture with my PhD project. And that really led me to go into the role that online and digital culture plays in alternative forms of culture that are not necessarily controlled by the state. Because in some countries, the state controls, especially in North Africa and the Middle East, the state has big control over what is on more traditional forms of media like radio or TV. There's a lot of bureaucracy that goes into that. So online is not exactly the liberatory space that was once believed it would be. Of course, it's controlled, but at the same time, it gives you more freedom in terms of aesthetics, for example, of what you want to publish. So I decided to see what was different from the culture that was produced in more traditional media, as I said, on TV, on television, because I started to see that not only rappers benefit from posting their content on YouTube, but also animated cartoonists. And what I was finding was that aesthetically it was very different from television, for example, in the terms of cartoons, and the stories that they were telling were very popular too. So I wanted to know why they were popular and how different it was. So yeah, that's the story.
10 years ago was around about the time we saw the emergence of something called the Arab Spring. What, if any, impact did that have on Moroccan politics and culture?
Well, exactly. The Arab Spring is quite significant in terms of what happened after, not only in Morocco, like we could apply this for North Africa and the Middle East too. So we carried out, when I was working at LSE, I carried out research project there looking at exactly creative online participatory culture. And what we found was that the mistrust that exists in general politics in the region at large was also happening online. So, for example, we worked with some activists in Morocco who were aware that their activities were being surveyed online. So, for example, they planned for a demonstration and they did an online event or a Facebook event, and they would fool the authorities by saying the date and the place that was not the correct one, and used other means to communicate the correct date of protest. So what we saw in general terms is a rise in surveillance. So the Arab Spring caused that the states in different countries looked more into what was happening online, and therefore rise in awareness of that surveillance. And it did change. So at the beginning, if we are talking particularly in Morocco, in 2012, so 1 year after what's called the Arab Spring, some cartoonists got in trouble with the state because of what they posted online. But this had happened before. So I think it was a bit earlier, so in 2009, 2010, some online users also got in trouble for posting pictures of the monarchy. However, when the Arab Spring kind of faded away until 2016, we can say that it was still there, but just dying out, the spirit at least. We started to see again more daring posts, more daring memes and pictures, and this kind of wave emerged. So yeah, the Arab Spring has been quite significant for online politics, I might say, and things have changed anyway since then, and maybe we can get into that a bit in a bit.
Earlier this year, you published an article about memes and the Moroccan far right. What memes were you looking at in that article?
Well, so I started my research on memes in 2017. And I was looking at different Facebook, especially Facebook meme pages. Why Facebook? Because Facebook is where most of Moroccan online users are, many more than on Twitter or now obviously it's changing into TikTok, Instagram, but at the time it was mainly Facebook. And for some time, they were quite daring in their opposition to governance. However, few years later, in 2019, I started to see the emergence of new meme Facebook pages that had a very different tone to it. So they were more pro monarchy, but not only that, because having a Facebook page that defends or is proud of the monarchy and the state and the nation is not something that it's strange neither. However, this was going a bit further. The memes they were posting included memes that had been made known by the far right or the alt-right, if I may say so, in the US, such as Pepe the Frog, for example, and with also the same aim and intention to demonize certain minorities, particularly migrants or feminists or certain groups that are traditionally targeted by the far right. This was something that was quite new. I had never seen this in Moroccan politics. So when I was looking at Moroccan rap, I looked a lot at patriotic rap because it was quite different from other rap scenes in the region and beyond. And the narratives, the patriotic narratives in Moroccan rap were very similar to mainstream patriotism and nationalism. However, this was very different when it came to meme culture. So that was the first thing that I noticed, and it made me look more into that.
What has been the reaction of the state to these sort of emerging far-right subcultures in Morocco? But also, I wonder, what has been the reaction of the platforms like Facebook itself to these things? Because they seem to be in a constant game of whack-a-mole in terms of the far-right around the world. But I did notice when I was trying to look at some of these Moroccan meme pages that I found them a little hard to pass from my knowledge, and I suspect that might be a problem for the platforms themselves who are coming from a Western perspective.
Well, one of the things, so that is, oh my God, it's really difficult to know how the platforms respond and how the state responds because it's very obscure. Sometimes on some, English, let's say Anglophone content, you can see that they use, that there are some words that are used as thermometer of what the post is trying to say. But in the case of first we need to understand that Moroccan, the language spoken, the language that is mostly spoken by Moroccans, Darija, is not an official language. So the official languages in Morocco are mainly Arabic, and that means modern standard Arabic or traditional Arabic. And it's quite different from this version of Arabic, or some might actually don't like to call it Arabic neither, even though you can write it in Arabic, because it's such a mix of Amazigh or Berber languages, French, Arab, and even Spanish, and some English. So it's a language that I imagine that it has been difficult to decipher for algorithms and platforms in order to find what they are talking about. If you try to translate this, and I don't know if that's your experience, but if you try to translate this post, they don't make much sense. So even though I see that it's getting better, the algorithm, the online the translation is getting better, it's still quite difficult for the platforms to control. Obviously, not so much for the state, because they do speak the same language. And what I have found out, I don't know if that's your experience too, is that many of the pages I speak about have disappeared. And there's no notice on why they've disappeared. They just disappeared. My understanding is that they've decided to stop and to open new pages with maybe content that it's not so much controversial. So it's more patriotic, nationalistic, which works much better than content that attacks people that are Moroccans too. So they're creating some of their enemies. That's and this is something I'm just. It's a sense that I have. It's not really research, because this is something that's happening right now. So this is something important to also consider when looking at any kind of online content that it can disappear and reappear, and in a very different form.
In addition to questions of linguistics and translation, I guess the other problem or challenge when examining this material is, and I guess analysing it, is how translatable are the concepts that are being redeployed, that are borrowed from elsewhere and redeployed in a Moroccan context. And I'm thinking especially about terms like the alt-right, but also fascism and even left and right. How do you approach those questions, and how did you approach analysing this material, these memes that have been produced on these pages?
Thank you for that question. It's really good. It's very important, because the fact is that mostly politics in North Africa and the Middle East, in the so-called Arab world, and I don't like to call it Arab because there are more ethnicities there, but it has been looked at mainly through, the idea of a right, or of an Arab right, has been discarded in most countries. Maybe Lebanon is an exception, but it has mostly been discarded. And the politics is divided between leftists, and what has been called the Arab left, nationalists, and Islamists more recently. And that's it. So it was very difficult when I looked at these memes and this content that looked so much like the alt-right in content and form. It was very difficult for me to place it within the politics of the region, of how the region had been studied traditionally and how groups have named themselves. The thing is that and this is not exclusive from the region, it's, I think, from politics in general, that political groups tend to name themselves however they want to see themselves, but not exactly how we others might see them. So, for example, these groups never call themselves the far right, which I believe is something that happens in many other cases. I can think about Spain with Vox. I never heard them calling themselves the extrema derecha, far right. In France with Le Pen and Front National. So it happens the same here. They don't call themselves. I never read in any post, but they do appropriate the Moroccan right, which they believe is a space that has not been occupied and that needs to be occupied in order to fight leftists and Islamists, who are believed to be the enemy of the right wing.
Besides leftists and Islamists, who are the enemies of this new Moroccan right?
Well, the enemies is anyone that does not follow like a mainstream conservative position. However, it's tricky because Islamists can fall into that category. However, the thing about Islamists, and that's something that may be coming from a kind of Western perspective, is not so well understood, is that Islamists have been one of the biggest opponents in Morocco of the status quo. They are the ones that have challenged the monarchy and the existence of the monarchy. And that is why they've also been demonized, using liberal arguments such as Islamists are, the similar thing that we see in Afghanistan, which I'm not trying to say this is the same thing, but this idea that the Islamists have come here to make all the women go back to their houses and, to bring a kind of to lessen the progress. And it's the official narrative that the monarchy is the one that's leading democracy, leading a progressive country. And Islamists were the ones that worked from bottom up. They were the ones that campaigned and that in neighborhoods and went to really they were the ones making the work that the status quo was not doing. So telling people, we can have a better country, but we need another kind of leadership. So we have the Islamist, but we also have some of the liberal groups, such as secular feminists, who have been traditionally supported by the state, and that's why one of my arguments is that these groups are not. I mean, I'm not sure how these groups are useful to the states, because they are destroying the work they've done in looking at in trying to create this idea of the progressive, liberal, moderate Morocco. So for sure, feminist or LGBTQ groups are also part of their target. Leftists, for sure, and then the traditional enemies of Morocco, which this is shared by everyone, not everyone, but most of Moroccans, which is Algeria, and the defense of territorial unity, such as the struggle in the southern regions of the Sahara. So some of the enemies are shared by, let's say, mainstream nationalists, and some are new enemies, which are at least not openly popular within mainstream patriotism nationalist narratives or discourses.
You are listening to 3CR 855 AM, 3cr.org.au and 3CR Digital on your DAB radio. We're currently talking to Dr Cristina Moreno-Almeida about the Moroccan far right.
In terms of questions of race and ethnicity and migration, what are the themes that are explored by this meme culture?
Yeah, it's tricky because while there is a story of migration from Moroccans migrating outside Morocco to Europe, to the US, to other countries in general, that story is totally concealed and the drama of many of these stories is totally concealed in these pages. And Morocco is depicted as a place where migrants want to come and live, which is also true. There's a flow of migrants from the southern countries that have a border with Morocco to Morocco and to stay in Morocco. So there's migrants that go to study and to work and to look for a different kind of life and stay there. So that is the main narrative in these pages. But there's nothing about the Moroccans that actually want to leave Morocco. Yeah. Race is also a complicated concept to look at. One of the reasons is that while race theory has been mainly constructed through the United States experience, and the Moroccan experience, the North African experience is quite different from the story in the US. So in Morocco, race is very tied to nationality. However, obviously the looks and in the street make this blur these lines of who is Moroccan and who is not Moroccan, who gets to be Moroccan. So while maybe in the States the rule it's a bit clearer in the sense that if you have a parent that is African American, Black, then you are automatically considered Black or African American. This is in Morocco. There's such a mix that it's very difficult to decipher. However, if you speak Darija or Moroccan Arabic or Moroccan with an accent, it means you're not from Morocco. Then you are racialized automatically. So the thing is that a few years earlier 2016, there had been talks on issues on racism. So some magazine posted a picture that was quite racist, and people started to complain about this. There were also stories of students coming from Mali and Senegal studying in Casablanca, where they were suffering racism and they were not allowed, where they were having trouble like looking for a house. So these stories came up and were quite important in terms of opening the race question in Morocco. However, these pages have brought back the idea that being racist is actually okay, and that there is something as the better Moroccan who is white or whiter or not such a deep skin color, which emerges all the time in these memes. Like when these memes represent Moroccans, the Moroccan is always lighter than the other character. Doesn't matter where the other character is. So there's a kind of use. They use race in this way to demonize any group that they're speaking about. And especially it's clear when they are talking about migrants, which are normally, even though they are migrants from Europe living in Morocco, those are not the migrants they are depicting.
I also wonder, I guess when I think about the origins of the term alt-right, its development as an alternative, especially in North American politics, there was some sense that it was a fairly marginal phenomenon that through force of circumstance began to obtain a much wider audience, and hence we have a proliferation of these memes that are associated with the alt-right across the globe. I'm wondering if you think that there's really an opening within Morocco for the development or further development of this culture, and is there any potential for it to begin to emerge within the, I guess, political scene as it's more typically understood?
It's first, the term alt-right is quite problematic in itself because it kind of washes down the ideology behind it. It kind of creates a cool alternative, the idea of alternative culture and rebellious culture, my understanding of what may happen, which I really don't know with these groups, is that they will also be washed down. And I think that's what I'm already seeing through these meme pages, and maybe become a right-wing, officially called right-wing group. Or, as it's typically in Moroccan politics, it will be co-opted. So their ideas will be co-opted by other already mainstream political groups. Some of their most popular ideas used, and the others just discarded. And with this co-option comes control of the groups too. I'm not sure if with our, with online culture and with digital culture, this will be something easy to kill. I mean, the whole ideology, but it certainly is the modus operandi of Morocco in general. So I don't know if I'm being clear, but what usually happens is that, and not referring to far right or ideologies, but some progressive groups come up with ideas that are popular, and political established groups appropriate them and use them for their, to get reelected, for their political propaganda. And that's the way they kill these progressive groups who normally want to go even further and they are managed and controlled. So I believe this is the same strategy that's going to be used here. And because it's dangerous for the monarchy to have disorder. So it's dangerous for the status quo to have uncontrolled groups. The way Moroccan politics, as I've been saying, work is not to go directly against them. So it's not directly censure them, but to co-opt them. So I believe, I don't see any reason why this case will be different. The only thing that I can think of is because online culture allows you to reinvent yourself. So you can close a Facebook page, but then open a new one and start to gain followers and reimagine yourself. Then this might happen. But how and what kind of ideology will these groups turn into? I really don't know. As I don't know about how the alt-right in the US is going to reinvent themselves after Trump. So I guess we're at a time now where we need to wait and see what's going to happen.
Well, that's all we have time for, folks. Cristina, where can people read more about your work?
I guess the best way to get in touch, get updates of my work is on my official page at KCL at King's College London, which you can just find on Google if you type Cristina Moreno-Almeida KCL, and that's where my updates will be.
Well, Andy, that was very interesting.
Yeah, it was, Ken.
We'll be back next week. Global Intifada is up next. See you later.
See ya.
شيء عادي من بخير نبقاو ضعيف موروكو عندك البلساوي ما عندك مساوي عندك البلساوي ما عندك مساوي كلخ وما قاريش الشاد بالذب واللي يستاهل مسكين تحت الشاش كذب المشكل من ما عنده ما يدير نشف لا خلقها صعيبة لا نحرك الشيء عندك البلساوي ما عندك مساوي
Free Palestine Melbourne has organised a forum. When prison is a weapon, the Palestinian reality. Go to fpmelbourne.org. That's fpmelbourne.org to register. The event's October 3 from 8 till 9:30 p.m. Included will be Nadia Dukka from Palestine, Bassam Tamimi from Palestine, our own Yusuf Rimawi here from Melbourne, and it will be chaired by Melissa from Free Palestine Melbourne. Again, the event is October 3 from 8 till 9:30. Go to fpmelbourne.org. Hope to see you there.
A 3CR supporter.